Hi, I'm Kirby Allison, and we love to help the well-dressed take care of their wardrobes. I'm excited to be here in London on Savile Row, right in front of the Gaziano and Girling boutique. I'm excited to be here for the first fitting for the Bespoke shoes that Daniel Wegan measured for me back in April. All right, Daniel, so.
Yeah, here we are. So we got a fitting for you. Time has passed and we've made you a last. And for a first fitting, we do a scrap leather shoe with just a cork sole. Something that gives the customer the chance to feel the fit of the shoe, get a general idea of the shape of the last, the shape of the pattern. Obviously, it's not as refined as the final product would be, but it'll give us something to discuss and talk about.
Yeah.
Maybe scrap some ideas, come up with new ones.
And so I had a black cap toe Oxford, right? But if someone did a semi-brogue or a different style of shoe, would that be reflected?
Yeah, we try to, depends on a little bit what it is. Maybe with exotic skins, we'll use a calf rather than the same leather. Maybe if it's got a lot of broguing and detailing, we might not have that represented all over the shoe, but maybe in key areas just to get an idea of the general purpose.
So instead of taking it straight to finish or just having a finished upper with no sole, you're doing a full trowel shoe.
Yeah, all of this will be scrapped and has nothing to do material-wise with the final product. So you can even change the color of the shoe, you can change the toe shape, you can maybe add a cap or remove a cap or broguing, no broguing. All of this can be changed. So
as far as the West End shoemakers are concerned, you have the most extensive fitting.
Yeah, as far as I know, I think there's a few ways of doing.
Japanese style.
Yeah, or French. It's very common in France to do this way. Yeah. I think we have a very small team of craftsmen. We like them to be just working on something that's a sure thing. And we allow our apprentices to get shoemaking experience by constructing these.
Yeah.
And the skilled workforce only work on a shoe when we know that everything is right. So we don't have to occupy them with fittings.
So the purpose here is to really validate the fit of the last and make any adjustments prior to going
to
it's
majority for fit. Most customers, they'll pick a style and stick to that style through the fitting process. But if changes are If the customer would like to make any changes, I let them know that this can be done if they're a bit hesitant, because these things take time, and over the course of a fitting process, you take
sometimes it's difficult to really kind of see or visualize what the shoe is going to look like on the foot, because you want a comfortable shoe, but not all feet work.
Yeah, what a sample looks like and what your feet look like are not maybe always perfectly in line with each other. And I think most samples are very romantic images compared to what a lot of feet are like.
Yeah.
So seeing that on you might give you second thoughts. And usually, a good compromise can be made. But I personally like to make the first fitting a little bit longer than it needs to be, so that I can work it down rather than having to build it up.
Yeah, well, great. Well.
So if we slip off your shoes. So now that we have the shoe on your feet, we'll give you a chance to feel if there's any discomfort, if there's any looseness, or something that just doesn't feel like you would like it to feel.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what would your first impressions be?
I think I could feel this kind of around my ankle bone. Mm-hmm. So maybe this is a little high.
A little bit high?
You know.
Do you feel it on both feet or generally just the right one?
I think it's more on the right than the left, but even a little bit on the left. Certainly
Yeah.
more pronounced here. I mean, especially just with kind of how I'm sitting reclined back.
Mm-hmm.
But they feel great. I mean,
Yeah, there's no obvious issues. There's a little bit of creasing here that probably tells me there's a bit of excess material. And generally I like to mark the creases out with a silver pen.
so what are you looking for here? I mean, how much is of the first fitting the customer telling you how the shoes feel versus you kind of using your experience as a last maker to know what to look for that maybe the customer's not even perceptive of?
The first thing I look for is there any creasing around the vamp? Are there any gaps around the top line? Anything that makes the shoe look different when you have them on rather than when they were on the last. Ideally, these two things should be very, very well matched, so there shouldn't be too much distortion of the leather when you put them on. The fitting shoes have a lesser quality leather and they can sometimes act a little bit disfavorably and look a little bit off, but in general they should be quite well matched. But I generally look for just a general closeness to the foot, and yeah, especially around the top line, and that the shoe has good heel grip. Something that's very difficult to adjust on a finished shoe. If they're a little bit snug around the vamp, you can stretch them and so on,
Yeah.
but loose heels can be a bit of a nightmare.
Okay.
And also on a lace-up, I would look to see how much the facings are opening.
So what is the general rule in terms of facings?
It's very personal. Some people like to lace their shoes very tight, and for them I would prefer to have a little bit more of an opening because they're going to make the leather stretch over time. Some people like them to just gently kind of graze the foot, and when you're not pulling so much on the leather, it's not going to stretch that much either, so they can probably start out with the facings a bit closer.
But you don't want this completely closed because if there's no gap,
No.
Then you don't
There's
have
a lot of things in a shoe that will bed in, like stiffeners will soften up a little bit, the foot will sink into the insole, which would allow more room in the shoe. So if it fits perfectly close at a fitting stage or in a brand new shoe, it's probably going to feel a little bit loose over time, especially on a shoe like this that will last many, many, many years. And I'd rather have a little bit more of an opening than completely closed.
And there's a lot of structure built into these shoes. I mean, this is, hard countered. I mean, all the way through, almost the ball of the foot. Can you speak a little bit about, just kind of your approach and, it's certainly a much more structured shoe than any of my other Bespoke shoes, and that's kind of part of your style, isn't it?
Yeah, I like quite a structured shoe. Same reason there, they're going to be around for a long time, so if they're going to offer you structure and support throughout its lifespan, they got to be pretty structured to begin with, because we are working with natural materials and not synthetics. And even if they feel a bit stiff in the beginning, they will soften in and mold quite a lot, because hopefully this will be a pair of shoes you wear a lot. And I prefer also the stiffeners in a fitting shoe to be almost a little bit over the top, so that the customer can really feel if there's a pinch anywhere. Like you mentioned here, the top line being a little bit snug. I see here that maybe it's a little bit on the high side, but I don't think I would make it the last any wider, because the real thing will have a much softer, more refined edge that's not going to bother you so much. And these things, you see a shoe after 4 or 5 years, you can often tell like, oh, maybe they've gone a little bit loose, should have gone a little bit tighter maybe. And if it doesn't bed in, it's you can put the last back in with a fitting on there and stretch it a little bit. I'd rather go a little bit snug around the heel area than a bit too loose.
Okay.
Especially if you're looking at a loafer or something like that. So if you stand up for me. So the difference between a person seated and standing can be very different from client to client. Some feet are very rigid and don't expand a lot, and some are very soft and will expand more. So now that you're standing up, I see that the area that was kind of loose in the beginning has filled out quite nicely. And if you're going to wear these for long days, you're going to want a little bit of room there so you're not cutting off circulation or anything like that. So this grease here I can still kind of see.
And you're pushing into the leather, especially across the vamp, to kind of see whether or not there's any extra
because
room.
I want to feel the bone structure underneath, and also feel what your foot shape feels like, and not just what the shoe looks like.
Yeah, I mean, it's really nice heel cupping. And, the amount of structure, especially around the arch, is really quite astounding. I don't think I've ever had I can really feel the structure of the shoe supporting the arch.
Yeah, I think for some people it might be a little bit more than they need. and it will soften up a lot. The brand new heel stiffener is really quite firm, and it won't feel as intrusive over time.
Now, is that important at all, just for the beveled waist? I mean, you know, Bespoke shoes, especially the Gazianos, have a really, you know, kind of tight beveled waist.
It's probably a little bit harder to get a nice slim waist with the thick heel stiffener, because when you're welting the shoe, you're stitching through this, and you're adding material. Reducing that thickness would probably make it easier for the shoemaker to make it so
Softer.
Yeah, softer.
But does it help control that area, because you don't have the sole, the outsole, kind of supporting the arch?
Yeah, no, because we have a slimmer waist, which is a little bit of our signature style, adding more structure to the rest of the shoe definitely helps. It's definitely not a bad thing. And because, yeah, underneath you need the support, and if you're taking a bit of the material out, you want to add it somewhere else. And it just makes the shoe look a lot cleaner over time as well. You know, a shoe will stretch and so on, but having the stiffener here will cause this area to not stretch as much. And it'll give a more clean looking shoe throughout its life. Because the only areas that are really lacking structure is the vamp. The toe cap has a stiffener inside, and the heel stiffener goes all the way around from the inside joint to the outside. So there's very little of the shoe that's unstructured.
Yeah. Now, so the structure, I mean, a lot of people associate a nice soft shoe with being comfortable. You know, here we have a lot of structure. So how does that, you know, contribute to this being a really comfortable shoe?
Everyone wants a different type of shoe, and I can really like a really soft shoe as well, especially for slippers, casual shoes. And if you have very healthy, perfect feet, that shoe works very well. If you tend to have dropped arches, if you're on your feet all day, the soft shoe feels very good initially, but it can be a little bit tiring to wear through a day.
Absolutely. I mean, my soft house shoes, I mean, you know, if I wear them out,
yeah,
you know, it's quite exhausting at the end of the day, and the foot gets very tired because it's not supported.
Yeah, it's got to do all the work itself, you know. And it's a good thing, you know, and I think it's good to wear different types of shoes. You don't want to wear a very structured shoe all the time. Same way you wouldn't want to wear your sneakers to the office or the other way around. They're built for a certain purpose, and we try to find a balance between comfort, support, and elegance. And to everyone that compromise is different. But this is our suggestion. But if a customer feel like it's too stiff, we're more than happy to make a softer shoe. I just like to prefer to fit the customer this way, and then we work from there.
So what's next? I mean, kind of walking around a little bit.
Yeah, obviously I'd like you to have a little walk around and have a feel.
Because it's really important that the shoe doesn't crease into the cap.
No, I prefer to have a cap that's positioned in a way and have a length that it allows the vamp to flex without interfering with your toe, and also for the crease pattern to go into the cap.
And that's one of the measurements that's really important is identifying, you know, where the ball of the foot is.
Yeah,
the metatarsals, right? Because that's kind of part of the design of the shoe, is to respect that anatomy of the foot.
Yeah, and we make a slightly longer, more chisel type last. And if that's not positioned correctly, you can get a lot of creases, because obviously you have a little bit of a longer vamp. In your case, maybe I think we should shorten the last a little bit, but I like to, you know, offer a first fitting with a little bit more length on, so people can get a feel for what that would look like. And I'd rather take material off the last than to add it. Overall, it looks very good. So after you've taken a little walk around and feel that the heels are not slipping too much, then I usually take the shoes off and we'll cut them up in a few areas just to see where your foot is on the inside. And that allows me to see if I want to take a little bit of material off somewhere, I can see where would be the best place to do that. But overall, if you turn around, so always have a look at the back, see that there's no air pockets. There's a little bit of space here. So maybe shorten the back of the left foot a little bit. Right foot looks pretty much perfect. So in this case, I kind of rely on the customer's feedback, because I can kind of see what's going on, but what it feels like, it's hard for me to judge.
You know, there's maybe a little bit of slip in the left foot.
Yeah, I can see that. So we'll have a look inside the back as well to see how. Here we can see how much space you have on the top of the shoe, but cutting it open in the back will kind of allow me to see how much space is at the bottom, so I'll know where to take it off.
So the next step is to take these off and open them up.
Yep.
All right, it's a shame. So beautiful.
So we got the shoes off, and I always like to check the inside of the heel, and I like to cut the vamp open to see how the volume is distributed inside. If there's a bit of gap over the small toes, maybe they're a little bit tight over the big toe. And this cutting them open allows me to get a really good image of what's actually going on. Feeling it on the outside, you can tell a little bit, but it's much more obvious when you cut it open. And it's a very simple way of doing it.
And it's something you can only do though with the trowel shoe.
Yeah, you don't want to do it on the real thing. You know, might bring the overall cost up a little bit too much. And this also allows me to see that the width of the heel cup on the shoe is good as well. So when I look inside, I'd be able to see if there's a lot of space on the side of your heel as well. So now that we cut these open, we'll slip them on your feet again. There we go. So now that we have these open, we can kind of see what's happening inside. So we can see that it's just kind of grazing your toe here. It might even be a little bit on the tight side. And there's quite a lot of space here. Sometimes you need a little bit more space here just to allow for the foot to expand.
Okay.
And when you're standing up, we'll kind of see that it'll fill a bit of that gap. And also you need a little, and sometimes you want to keep it just for the look of the shoe, to have a little bit more shape into it. It might look a little bit too flat. And I like to draw one line for when you're seated. And then we can have a look when you're standing up. So if you stand up for me, we can kind of see that you got almost half a size of expansion while standing up. Still a little bit tight there. Maybe add 1.5 millimeter. And not so much on the height, but maybe just a little bit around the inside of the shoe.
Yeah, because you marked it as having a little bit of extra volume kind of on the outside of the foot.
Yeah. And here, you know, your foot is just around the edge here, and it's a little bit flexible, so I don't think I would add much more material there. I could probably take a little bit off the outside and just take it in a little bit down the front, so that even if I shorten it, I can still kind of keep the same general toe shape to keep the elegance. But yeah, I'm definitely going to take probably around 2 millimeter off there. I like to mark the little toe, because usually that one needs all the space you can get. It's one of the more sensitive areas. So if you turn around, so on the right foot we know the heel grip was very good. There's a little bit of space at the bottom, and when I feel around this edge that I just cut, I can feel that there's a little bit of space there, so I can probably just straighten up the back a little bit. But at the top, looks very nice. And you mentioned they were a little bit tight here, so I'm just going to make a mark that we're going to lower the top line fractionally, just to clear your ankle there.
I mean, standing up is really not an issue. It's more just sitting down.
Yeah, but you'll be sitting down at times, you know, so we want it to be comfortable in every position. Looking here on the right foot, or the left foot, there's a little bit more space here. And I really like to check this area, because if I see that I have the insole is coming out behind you, I know that I can take a bit that off and try to keep the shoe looking a bit shorter. And sometimes that allows me to put more length on the front without making the shoe look any longer. And it generally makes a more comfortable walking shoe, having the heel sit right under you rather than a little bit behind you. So other than that, I just think that the right foot looks very good on the instep, a little bit of an opening.
And what about right across the, my arch, where I have that bone, that is kind of a pressure point? Is that
Yeah, how would you say? Do you say you feel it a little bit?
You know, it's one of those things where in the beginning of the day, it's really not much of an issue. It's only after wearing the shoes for a while, but...
Yeah, what I generally do, and some people might think it's not very traditional, but I like to actually put a little bit of padding in the tongue, especially for lace-up styles. If it's like a Chelsea boot or a side gusset shoe, I wouldn't do it, because you can kind of mold the shape of the leather around the instep bone shape. But when you have laces, there's a lot of material there. There's the actual shoe, there's the laces that can rub up and down, and then you have the tongue. So it's very thick. So if you have a sensitive foot with so much leather on, it's not always up to the last shape.
Okay.
If you tighten that hard, it will kind of restrict a bit of circulation. So I like to put just like, we use something called Poron, which is something probably similar to like a memory foam.
Okay.
And it's really just like 2 millimeter thick. And it's just enough to take the edge off that paint and allow the circulation. Because you got quite a slim foot where the blood vessels are quite close to the surface. So if you really lace up a shoe nice and tight, it probably can get a bit numbing. And having that padding there just takes the edge of that. But other than that, it's a very clean looking shoe. Even now wearing them a little bit, some of these creases here have kind of calmed down a little bit. And I think adding a bit more room here for the big toe will take a little bit of strain off that. And it would clean up quite nicely.
So I guess the next step is, you know, you'll take these adjustments back to the last, right?
Yeah, so we'll take it back to the last, make some adjustments to it, and after this we will make a wearable fitting shoe that you can wear for a little bit longer. Okay. So you would have a rubber sole on, and either the customer will pick it up here or we'll send it to them, and that allows them to wear it more normally.
Oh, really?
So they can wear it all day. They can generally wear them for weeks, and it allows them to really see how they feel about those shoes over time. Because even if this is a very structured shoe and very similar to the real thing, just trying it on in a store is very different to wearing it day to day.
Yeah, so this, I guess, really, illuminates, you know, why there's a surcharge for the first pair of shoes, because of the incredible amount of additional work that goes in to the way that you guys approach, you know, the last making. Because, you know, having a complete throw-up trowel fitting is more than most. But then actually taking that to a second wearable trowel shoe is quite expensive.
Yeah, like
also.
I mentioned in the beginning, we like to keep our craftsmen and only working on things that are as close to an absolute certainty as we can. And it also kind of motivates you more as a craftsman. When things are not quite right, and if you know that maybe you had a fitting where you wanted to make some adjustments and you're not sure if the adjustments were, maybe you did too much, maybe you didn't do enough, and that shoe come back. You know, we love our shoes, but when they're finished, we like them to stay with the customer and not come back for adjustments. So it takes the initial process of a first pair can be quite lengthy with us, maybe a bit longer than some of the others, but there's something that goes into it. It's for a reason.
But it's, you know, it's certainly less expensive than, you know, throwing away a completed pair of shoes that after 4 or 5, 6 months the customer brings them back and says,
you know, if you have to send your shoes back to the workshop, if you live overseas, just the shipping costs of that can dig in a little bit to it. And, you know, having shoes adjustment, it takes time. So we rather, you know, spend a little bit more time in the beginning, because we feel like we get that time back later. So yeah, here we have your lasts. They have a few leather fittings on here because in the beginning, when I was making them, I was a little bit unsure kind of how sharp you wanted them. So I put a little bit of extra on there, and to be honest, I should have probably went with my first instinct, but I thought I'd make a little bit more interesting toe shape.
So show us a little bit, you know, with the trowel shoe, you know, how your adjustments would kind of manifest on the last.
Yeah, well, the best I can actually show you what we do in the workshop is that once we've made, I like to write on the shoe, and also take some pictures. So when we look at here at this area where we had a lot of access room here, that would be this area of the last. So I would probably mark that out. I'll just do it roughly now for this to make it a little bit more understandable. Here I have a fitting for your instep bone. I like to just stick this quite roughly for the first fitting. That way I can just peel it off if it's in the wrong place. So if it's very sensitive, I make a mark, check it, maybe see that it's not centered or needs to go up a couple of millimeter, and then I can just peel it off.
And that's something that the customer would feel quite immediately. I mean, I didn't feel that it wasn't on there correctly, so.
No, I think it's sat in the right place. It's just whether it maybe need a little bit of padding too. Because I think if you don't lace your shoes very tight, but if you do like to give a little bit of a tug, I prefer padding. I have the same problem, and I feel like the light padding is a very good solution. And same here, where I've made a mark that the heel was a little bit too long. That's something I would mark out here and work to that line, and then check it again with your measurements.
So you're going to be filing.
I will be taking the wood off here, taking the wood off there. Obviously, we felt they were a little bit long. Maybe we'll take like half a size off or so, maybe even a little bit more. And then we have a little bit of room on the outside. So this leather fitting I put on here, that's probably going to come off.
Okay.
So in this case, I can just peel that off probably. I harden my leather fittings with shellac and rub them down so they get very firm and very similar to the wood. We were quite happy with the arch. We were quite happy with these areas for the top line, so I'm not going to do too much. These closed up a little bit more than I'd like, so I'd probably take a little bit off the instep.
Okay.
But in this area where they felt a little bit snug, I'll probably put something on here. And I think one of the creases were forming because there was not enough room there, so it was kind of giving it a little pull like that, and that was making that crease there. So giving it a bit more room, it will just kind of smooth that out for it.
And what about the bottom of the shoe? Or the, at what point, because you're working on building, the insole also, in terms of sinking certain areas and.
Yeah, I like, this is a pretty good representation of what I think would be a medium arch support. We have some people that want something that is almost more in the orthopedic realm of shoemaking, and it can be very extreme. Okay. And usually a lot of times there'll be consultations with their doctor.
Okay.
Because orthopedic shoemaking and this kind of shoemaking, they're similar, but they're different jobs. And I like to keep the forepart quite flat, not overly curved. I don't like the foot to try to kind of sink into this. I want it to, and I keep the toe spring quite low. The big toe wants to be in the ground and help you with your balance. And on high-end footwear like this, they should be quite flexible, so they don't need the spring for walking and so on. And they look a lot better without, they look a lot less pedestrian. With a lower toe.
Okay, so you'll take these measurements and adjustments back to the last, you'll work at those in the workshop, and then do another trial fitting, but this next one will be with the rubber sole that I can wear?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'll probably have that sent to you, and then we'll meet up somewhere in the world to see how you got on together. And sometimes something that feels very firm initially, once you wear it for a while, you realize that initially it softens up quite quickly, even a structured shoe like this.
Do you get to a point where you take the shoe straight to finish? I mean, is all this work really just for that first pair?
I have done first fittings where I felt like there's not really a lot I want to do to this, but I tend to do a little something at least. I feel like I'm not really doing my job if I don't do anything.
But what about like a second or a third pair? I mean, do you get to a point where the last is just nailed?
Yeah, I try to meet up with the customers, and even if they don't mention anything, if I see something on their shoes that I think I could clean them up a little bit, and I know that it's not going to affect the fit in a way that they're not going to like, I will do that adjustments anyway. If it's something like lengthening them or shortening them or something like that, I will obviously consult the customer. But if I just see a little ruffle somewhere and I know what to do about it, then I'll do that.
But you would do that without creating replicating this whole fitting process?
No. Depends,
Yeah.
If
depends how off it is or how big the adjustment.
And with this process, it's very rare that we get to a final stage and there's something major having to be done. Sometimes usually that's down more to maybe miscommunication and so on.
But you still even might see a little bit of evolution from that first to the second pair and the second to the third pair.
I almost do a little something to almost every pair.
Every pair.
If I see the customer, if they live overseas and we've only seen each other a couple of times and they order shoes via phone call or email, and they say everything is great, then I'll just go ahead. But if I see them in person, I like to have a look at the shoe and just do a little something, because there's nothing that good that it can't be made better, especially with craft. So we try to improve every time.
So you're never completely relaxed whenever you're around a customer wearing your shoes, because you're always obsessing over the shoes as they walk.
Yeah, I try to, you know, I probably look more at the shoes than anything else. But no, as a craft, it's hard to be completely happy with anything. But you know, as long as if the customer's happy and my standards are maybe a little bit higher, that's the way it should be.
But that's part of the, I mean, that's part of the characteristic of a great craftsman, is that they're never satisfied, never completely satisfied, right? Because that's what drives the quest for
that's
perfection.
what made you hopefully good in the first place. But it's also a matter of, you know, maybe the customer's very happy with the shoe, but I see something that maybe somebody else would notice. Somebody that's maybe more interested in shoes and have many bespoke shoes and maybe have bespoke shoes of their own. They'll look at his shoes and say like, well, you know, that could have been done better, or that's a great pair of shoes, where did you get them? So I try to please not just the customer, but everyone who sees the shoes. Yeah.
So really, it's an incredible amount of structure.
Yeah.
I look forward to actually wearing the finished shoe just to be able to experience, you know, what it feels like. Hey, thanks, Daniel. I can't wait to see the next.
My pleasure.
Kind of the next incarnation.
If you enjoyed this video, give us a thumbs up, and please subscribe to our channel and turn on your notifications by clicking the bell to the right of the subscribe button so that you can learn whenever we release new videos. If you have any questions or comments about anything we discussed on this video, please ask them in the comments section below. And of course, please visit hangerproject.com, where we have the largest, most comprehensive collection of luxury garment care and shoe care accessories in the world, as well as many other incredible products for the well-dressed. And while you are there, subscribe to our newsletter to receive notifications of new product launches, promotions, as well as a weekly digest of all the videos we publish here on our YouTube channel.